Hello reviewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Computer Wednesday, we're going to talk about brand trust and loyalty. So let's dive deep into it. Now recently it feels like a hellscape because things are going bad, and I mean whole of PC industry is dealing with this because AMD 7000 was a kind of mild release. It was a good product but like kind of overpriced, but then they released 3D and apparently missed the checking or like had miscommunication with their motherboard partners. Overvolting happened which led to kaboom. So boom happened there. Then we come to who was the electrical engineer who designed this Gigabyte PSU. Bad design, and let's just not go there. It was really bad. And then we have Gigabyte 30 series GPUs. There is a very good chance we may add 40 series soon, but the problem is like they did not do stress testing apparently, and it has a minor area where it can crack. Now crack itself is not that big of a deal unless it can propagate. It should not propagate, and not to mention you should not have things there that can break easily. So basically, like how your cars have crumple zone, PCBs are also designed in such a way that, like, some places that can, subject to themselves to stress, you design in such a way that, hey, if stress do damage that part, it should not compromise, $1,000 equipment. So bad. And then we have Asus motherboard debacle of like, we're gonna, avoid your warranty. It was mostly a miscommunication, but again, these companies have always this attitude now. What if we F the customer? It's like, you are running on customer money, flat out, you are running on customer money. You cannot have this sort of attitude, what if we F the customer? Only Apple can do that. So this is one of those that, and you have to understand, I'm talking about like just few broad general one which I'm like focusing on right now because they are very recent. But reality is many companies, almost all brands are dealing something similar. And some issues are like bit old, and I do not mean like 30 years ago, I mean like few years ago, and some are recent, some are ongoing, and some will come to the light in the future. So it's one of those things that makes you very disheartened, where it's like it's one of those things. So why the heck that's malfunction is happening? Well, you have to come to real world here. So in real world, things happen. Now, what does that mean? That simply means we are dealing with black magic, flat out. This thing is a freaking black magic. It even looks black. So it's a black magic thing. And failure or malfunction is inevitable. No matter what you do, no matter how good your design is, it's gonna happen. Now, you have to understand this way. The people who are building these things, they also know it. So they design the idea of warranty. The idea with warranty is that first, it's a two-way street. You may think a company is only losing money with warranty. No, actually not. If they really want to survive long term, it's far better it's in their best interest to make tools that last forever, or at least fail in a predictable way. But here's the deal: no matter how much testing you do, lab testing equals zero in real world. So the moment you brought things into real world, you will be like, I did not even think about that. Okay, that's a weird problem. Okay, yeah, I did not see that. That always happens. Ask any engineer who has ever taken an idea, made it into a product, to a prototype, to actual mass production, to actual delivery, and they're like, yeah, nothing matters. In lab, everything works. The moment you touch a real life, it's like, poof, gone. So it's one of those things that does happen. It's a known thing. So we have warranty to take care of it. And because warranty is designed such a way that you give them their defective part, either they repair it or give you a new one. Whatever they do, that's up to them. But benefit of this is, from a company's point of view, they get it back. Now they can do stress analysis on, they can do a investigation on that. And if they're finding, let's say they received back, they sold 100,000 units and they received 50, 60 units, and all of them had different problems, that's just like, bad luck. That's not too much to be concerned about. They will be happy with that. It's like, hey, that means we really designed the system well. But let's say 100 pieces are coming back, all of them have same failure, and they're like, oops. That's a oops moment. So in those sort of scenarios, they will be like, okay, let's make sure the next generation does not have this oops moment. So it is actually valuable from company's point of view also. So a good company, especially the company that wants to be there in long term, they will always take care of warranty, because it's, again, they want to know, they do not want to piss off the customer. Some of them have brain still remaining, where they're like, hey, we are running on customer money. Pissing them off too much is unadvisable. So, but there is a gap, there is a gray zone. How many of you are dealing with this sort of things, hard drives and all that jazz? Almost all of you. And how many of you have failures? Almost all of you. But here's the thing: how many of you thought about RMAing it, actually RMAing it? Now, of course, there is a large percentage of my audience is in the tech wizard category. They would have done that, but not everybody does that. And I was browsing the Amazon, and I was seeing reviews, and people are like, this product is the worst because like I got defeated, and I'm like, I'm using it. It's working. And I know other reviewers have covered it, other people have done. What does that mean? That simply means you got a defective one. Now, has that ever happened to me? Yes. My brother, like, I bought a phone, but my brother said, like, hey, give it to me and I'll do an unboxing and all that. He bought the phone, got the phone in physical location, opens it up, phone is like, nope. Phone just nopes it. It does not even start. It's a brand new phone. It's like, nope, I'm not going to boot. What did we do? Send it back. They give us a new one. So it does happen. It's one of those things that does happen. Samsung was wise enough where there's like, hey, things happen. We are making hundreds and thousands of devices per day. Some bad things will, slip through the cracks. So let's take care of the customer. But imagine somebody there, which again, many of the people who are replying on Amazon, so they are like, this company is bad. It only worked for 3 months and then it broke. I'm like, the brand is known. The brand is a big brand is known. It has RMA procedure. How about you use it? I had an issue with Western Digital Purple Drive. One of them failed. And I was like, okay, it failed. I'm like, I sent it the RMA. Of course, it did cost me a little bit of money, but compared to throwing my whole of the value away, I added a little bit more and I got a workable lifespan out of it. So that's far more cost effective rather than having just like being bitter about it. So it does require people to be familiar with the RMA process, service centers. Now I had good experience in Bangalore because again, it's a tech center of India. So it had service center of everything. Like I had a Corsair power supply going boom, had Asus motherboard going boom, because again, we had really bad power surge. It fried even a pedestrian fan I had. It fried that fan, fried the UPS, fried the PSU and the motherboard. I was shocked that almost everything other than that survived. So it caused serious damage. And I just went there, they swapped it out, went to motherboard, swapped it out, no problem. Like people took care of me. But RMA is a missing thing because I do find it annoying that Western Digital, they do sell a lot in India. India is a large market and they have one place in Bangalore, area, like in that sort of area where you have to send your stuff. I'm like, why? Why can't you, like there is 4 central areas in India, Calcutta, Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, like 4 spots. Have it there, like all those spots. They did not. But again, the process is messy. That consequence, like we spend more time in, not in the RMA process, more in the shipping department. But company needs to honor the warranty. That part again, you can easily find it. These people who never did RMA and they always complain, it's like, oh, I bought it, it did not work. It's like, did you try it? Because again, there could be another thing. You RMA'd it and then there are companies like, lol, we're not gonna, but here's the deal. If you did the RMA, now you have a slip of it. Now you can say, hey, I had this issue, this is what I did. Other people can either correct you, hey, you did this fried your system. Do not do this with other system. You learn something. If company is trolling you, they would have trolled other people also, and then everybody will know. Stay away from this company. Everybody wins. So you have to do the RMA. And companies have to actually accept it. Like, yeah, we are doing business. There will be some loss into this. And they cannot just use the law to F the customer. They cannot be just like, hey, we wrote the law. The law is like, we will only cover warranty if, if there is a product defect detected. Condition applied on the product defect. Condition applied product defect. You go into that page. You have to go through bylaws and there's like 500, 600 pages of legal documents. And the final line is F you the customer. Not even joking. Of course, they put it politely, but it's FU. So they wrote it that way. Their lawyers did amazing job, but it's one of those things. Just because it's legal does not mean it's ethical. So they have to have that break. So it's like, whoa, just because we can deny warranty does not mean we have to deny warranty. So malfunction is one of those things that will happen. We both, like customers, have to sometimes bear. It's like, hey, I'm buying something, maybe it did not work. So it's one of those things that you have to be able to bear that hassle, so to say. So why the heck that's happening so much? Well, reality is money can only buy speed. It cannot buy time. What does that mean? That simply means, let's say you are a PSU manufacturer. Let's say Gigabyte. You design your stuff and stuff works. Now here's the deal. What would you do? You will test everything. But here's the deal. What if you messed up a little bit? Just a little bit. You messed up everything that we are dealing with silicon is generally gates. So these gates have resistance. Basically, they're going to turn off and they're going to turn on. Now, it has values. Basically, I'm going to turn off to almost 100, never absolute, there will always be leakage current. I'm going to turn off as close to absolute zero as I can get. I'm going to turn on to as close to 100% as I can. Now, this is the values, like, 0 and 100%. Now, of course, the real world, there will always be like, it's not really 100% open. It's not really 100% closed. But again, every engineer, every manufacturer who is making that parts will tell you, hey, this is the optimum range. It does have some buffer, but that shall not stay in the buffer zone. Buffer zone is like transient spike or things of that nature. If you are staying in that sweet spot, we can give you 5,000 hours of working life. You're like, awesome, GG. But here's the deal. What if the customer who is designing that product designed it little bit out of spec, little bit, just a little bit. It's now harming the gates. Now the gates will not fail instantaneously. They will not be like, oh, you harmed the gate, boom. It was not designed that way. It was designed to endure as long as it can. What does that mean? That simply means you can have whole QC, do it properly. The moment it touches the basically customer hand, and of course is no longer in controlled environment, kaboom. So it's one of those things. That's why I specified you can only buy speed. You can buy a machine that test all your components very quickly. People do that. People do spend boatload of money, but you cannot spend for time. Like you cannot have a time machine. Hey, I'm gonna put this PSU in this time machine, run 5,000 hours on it, so we can validate our design over time. You can't do that. So it's one of those things. Some things take time to show up. I'm reasonably sure everyone who is building that AMD CPU must have worked their ass off to build it. I'm reasonably sure they're not incompetent people. They must have worked on it. But that issue, the voltage may be high. So that issue took time to show up. So it's one of those things. It happens. It's a real life. It will happen. But you have to understand why the heck it's such a big issue nowadays is simply because everybody is like, what if we had poor QC? It's like, no. If you are aware of the fact, like what's the reason why RE cameras are so expensive? And people actually buy it. It's like, it's not only expensive, it's actually successful. How the heck that's possible? Well, reality is RE learned out a very serious thing about electronics, which every manufacturer knows, is that if you build a product, you do your due diligence, you are like very thorough, very precise about things, you build a stuff. Now this stuff has very high failure rate in the first month. Now you're like, why the heck a brand new device will fail? Trust me, it does. It's one of those. That's why I said I bought a brand new motherboard, unsealed, unopened. It's like, nope. It happens. It's one of those things that's weird, but it does happen. What RE will do, they will build the stuff. They will stress that puppy the hell out for 1 month. Now, if it's one of those unlucky devices that's going to poof itself, it poofs itself in the company hand and the customer never gets a defective product. And after you get it, after it survives that stress test, they figure it out everything. They figure out the value of the devices, how it's holding up everything, fine-tune everything that they need to fine-tune, and then they give the product out. Product works flawlessly for 3 to 5 years. There's like if you have 0 to 100 as in like time axis, 0 to 100 in failure probability is high, and then there is a bath curve kind of scenario, and then it goes up after you have spent the life, like capacitors have aged and all that. So you always want the product in that zone. Now how do you make sure? You spend money on it. So every company knows that, like same factory that is making your, let's say, MSI motherboard could be the same factory that is making some Chinese no-name brand motherboard for this with same chipset. Like, wait a minute, then why the heck people are not buying super cheap Chinese motherboard? The reason is QC is the quality control. All the companies do want to make sure that they are selling you something that does not come back to them. They don't want to deal with it. Again, it's not in their best interest, but that curve is still there. So every time companies like, what if we do not do this? Outcome is you get more and more product failures. And it is done generally to boost profit, which many times poof the company out of existence. So it's one of those things. So that's the first layer of problem. The second layer, which I have no idea, somewhere in 1980, a virus was created. This virus went into assholes of every single product manager, and they were like, what if we make 50,000 model of same thing? I have no idea what happened. Like, I'm talking about camcorder era. I'm talking from camcorders to VHS to music tapes to it's like literally things blah, 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 just exploded. Like, for example, TVs. Like, this is a TV. TVs are a thing that people do not replace every year. Like, nobody does that every year replacement. Even a tech gurus and all that, they will only replace it unless something big happened just after buying them. But generally, they will not replace it. So TVs are slow moving on, but here's, look at the LG's catalog. Every year they are refreshing it. It's like, what are you actually refreshing? No, we are refreshing it. What are you changing? Is the SoC different? No. Is the panel glass different? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. They are working their ass off to, simplify some things, make yield rate better. Of course, they are working their ass off, but that only happens once in a while. Where they're like, okay, we are going from generation 5 glass to generation 6 glass. That's very rare jump. It's not happening every year. And every year they are coming out with different models. And let's not even go into motherboards. There is only 3 chipsets per generation generally. And you could have like around 10 to 12 models from one goddamn motherboard. How the heck that's possible? Like, how? It's one of those things that too many products use. This brain virus, I'm glad. This is one thing that I do like about Apple. Somehow they are the only company that can fight this brain virus off. They're like, hey, how about we only make few phones? We can actually polish it. Like, they were running on one iPhone for so long. So long they survived on one iPhone. And then they're like, hey, now we have a large enough crew, large enough team, two. Like very slow. They're like, by the time Samsung is releasing 500 model per year, Apple is like, bro, 5, done, go home, sweet dreams. So this product skew is the reason why nobody has time for it. For example, let's say MSI released 15 motherboards. They have to do QC on all of them. All of them had to get their dedicated version of BIOS. That's why you will notice that even if you have same motherboard and it has like basic variant and Wi-Fi variant, it requires whenever you have to do update of BIOS, they're like, please make sure you have exactly precise the same motherboard. Why? They created a hassle for themselves because they've created SKUs. So too many SKUs is the primary reason why our world is so messed up. Primary reason. And I could not find the one individual that created this brain virus. If I could find a time machine, I will boom him out of existence. So it's like, it harms the customer and company. Like I just recently bought an ink tank printer. Oh my God, how many printers Epson makes. And I'm not even joking, the model that I have, you can buy this in Europe and all that. If you're in Philippines or somewhere like that, you can buy one step above that. That has the same, everything is the same. It's just the user access panel is different. It has touchscreen. And you can't buy this anywhere else. It's like, what? And then there is this different variant that has like almost everything. I wanted a basically printer that can print on discs, but unfortunately I did not. That printer not available in India. What? It's like I looked into their paragraph. It's like how many? It's a freaking paragraph of A4 sheet papers. It's like how many printers they have. It's huge. It's what the heck? It's like it's harming the company. It's harming the customer. But somehow people are unable to let this brain virus go. And here's the same silicon should not be packaged in multiple ways. It's like if you are releasing a super high-end, let's say, silicon, for example, let's say 1490 series silicon, you may make two model where it's like one, the best we can do, another liquid cooled. Makes sense. But if you're talking about something budget range, like let's say 4070 Ti, there should not be 4070 Ti, which I have bought, 4070 Ti overclock edition, 4070 Ti ROG edition, and the price gap between these two are bonkers. Now here's a problem with them. Silicon is the same, but they have to redesign the vBIOS. Now, because be mindful, these things are time critical, meaning they get the trucks from NVIDIA, they have to get it working, they have to design the vBIOS, they have to do all the QC and launch it as soon as possible. Why? Because if they delay it, let's say it takes 1 year to make this card damn solid, whereas like, dude, we say it. Of course, they get chips much before the launch date. That's why I'm saying 1 year. So that 1 year labor, how many teams you could have, like how many people you could have, let's say 30 people, that 30 people, 1 year, they can make this card rock solid. Like from coil wines to PCB to everything. They can like, bro, we give you quality stamp. That means you make 100,000 of this, less than 100 will have failure. That's awesome. But if you take the same team and divide, hey, make 2 of them, why? Like, of course, sometimes it makes sense. Like for a flagship product where you have liquid cooled and non-liquid cooled, makes sense. But here it does not make sense. It's like, what? And it literally harms them. And they're like, okay, now we have to have 2 BIOS because this card is almost 25% to 100% more expensive than this variant. So they have to overclock this puppy even more than into like basically this overclock to red zone. So why? That's the whole point. Silicon is the same. You're not going to get magical more performance, but you will suffer the consequence of it. So this is the whole point. Same silicon, especially with motherboard, same silicon, there is only 3 chipsets or whatever, how many chipsets is like, you should have only 1 chipset, 1 motherboard, and do not make like a super high-end chipset with super cheap motherboard. It's like, what's the point of that? It's like, oh, we're going to give you a super basic chipset with overclocking potential. It's like, nobody who's doing overclocking will use a basic bitch chipset. That's the whole reason. That's why we have such a bad quality control nowadays. It's like everybody's just loose motioning out of products. It's like blah, 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 SKUs after SKUs. So this comes to the worst aspect of it. All are the same. For example, every brand. Now, if you're old enough as I am, you must know this puppy. This hassle happened. I'm not sure it happened in Europe also, but this was Nokia BL5C. Now, they have messed up something royally, and these batteries were going boom. And yes, this is around 2005 or 7. Like long ago. So that's why I do not freak out when people say, oh, Samsung going. I'm like, dude, I'm used to it. I'm used to it. So this is one of those things that does happen. But as long as company handle it professionally, it was like, oops, our bad, we human, we not God, we're going to take care of you because you gave us money, we happy. But if the company is like, no, it's your fault. I'm like, dude, only Apple can do that. Everybody else have to take care of it. So It's one of those things. Every brand does that on every vector. So you can't truly boycott it. For example, you're like, hey, I'm going to boycott Gigabyte because A, they licked all their microcode, which not only compromises Gigabyte itself, also compromises AMD. But what can you do? You're going to go to Asus, okay? Asus may have like bad policies. Now, what the hell you going to do? You go to MSI. MSI also have their own, skeleton in the closet, so to say. That's the whole point. You may be like, hey, I'm not going to buy AMD. Intels have more than enough skeletons there, flat out, not even joking. So every brand has this. It's just all of them have messy history. You have to accept it. So that's why I do not freak out too much about it. It's like, oh, this brand is like, dude, every brand has it. It's like, be it Nokia, Samsung, Asus, Gigabyte, whatever have you. What does this mean? This simply means you must grow a pair of balls and you have to be like, I will never be loyal to a brand. For example, I'm buying a lot of Samsung phone. Does that mean I'm going to continue to buy Samsung phone? As long as they're making good phones. If their phones are like, nope, I'm like, nope. There is no point. It's like, I have to do this. I have to. No, I'm not a sheeple. Like people who are like, oh, iPhone will never be like, garbage, or they will never compromise the battery life. This was one thing they were like, even Joe Rogan was like, oh, Apple will never do this. Like you can watch when the first rumors came out, he was talking in the podcast. It's like, oh, no, Apple will. If they did, I will stop using it. It's like, and it came out. Yeah, they were legally doing it. They were like just effing the customer. And again, F the customer, but tell them that you're going to F them. Do not just F them. That's rude. So, but nobody could change it because they are sheeple, and that's the whole point. That's what company want. They want you to be absolute brainless in terms of their fanboyism. Like that's what Gigabytes want. That's what Asus wants. That's what Intel wants. That's what AMD wants. That's what Nokia wanted at some point. So it's one of those things. You have to be aware of this. You have to be like, I had good experience with Asus, like flat out. They had their motherboard which went boom one time because of me, one time because of a power surge, and they took care of me. I am happy with that. Gigabyte, again, sometimes they took care of people, but sometimes they don't. It's up to you. So it's one of those things. Your loyalty has to be something that is earned, and it has to be earned regularly. If I'm buying Samsung phones and it's good, I'm happy with it. If they're like, no, we're gonna F the customer, I'm like, bye. I'm gonna go to whatever else. If Asus is making some interesting ROG phones, I'm going there. If let's say MI is making some interesting one, I'm going there. If let's say Nothing phone is making something interesting, I'm going to go there. I am no longer bound to anyone. Even if they are like, good option, and if they are effing the customer, I'm like, bye. That's why you have to understand, you should never be loyal to anyone. Like I'm happy with Epson printer, but will I buy the next printer would be Epson? Not necessarily. So it's one of those things. You must be on your feet and you must adapt with the times. For example, if AMD is good and you're like, hey, I have always bought Intel, do not give Intel that luxury. They will, just be lazy. And they did that. They did that. So it's one of those things. You always have to keep all these company into tiptoeing. It's like, hey, where this customer is going to go? It's like, you have to be like, hey, I've seen you have not innovated. You are just effing the customer. How about buy? You have to be there. You have to have that option. So what can we do to actually solve it? Like, this is a problem, we all agree with that, but what can you do to solve it? First, all of us have to come to the table, so to say, with good faith. That's why I said, like, I cannot accept your side of things where it's like, oh, I bought this was just broken. Things happen. Like, did you try to RMA it? And then they're like, no, we're gonna have the customer. That's a different thing. Then I'm like, I'm all yours, man. I'm gonna go with war for that reason. But both of us have to do a good faith thing. Customers have to learn about warranty. And this is Electroboom also talked about this, very interesting. Like Philips, people are buying Philips LEDs, and Philips LEDs are just garbage, they're failing. But nobody's sending it to Philips as like, bro, you gave 2 years warranty, this did not last. Like, say that. Then Philips have to be like, caught with their pants down, so to say. They could be like, hey, we're gonna honor the warranty, that's awesome. And if they honor the warranty, that means they genuinely did not know what went wrong, and that's awesome for them. They will collect the pieces, do a thorough analysis on that, what is the failure point. If they just like, let's have the customer, they will reject it. But if let's say hundreds of people do that, then randomly there will be a, hey, wait a minute, thousands of people have bought this product, thousands of people try to RMA it, and you just effed all of them. Some codes will love that. So it's one of those things. People have to use warranty. This is the only way to minimize loss. For example, I had a Western Digital purple drive. It did fail, but it was expensive equipment, 4 terabyte. I'm not that rich where I can just lol hard drives. So when the hard drive failed, I had to basically, thankfully this is one good thing in India, we have really amazing parcel service. Parcel came to my home, I just gave it went there. That's why I did not like the fact that I had to go so far. It's like, go to Calcutta or Delhi, both are much closer. Go there, just take care of it, and then it came back. I now have a 4 terabyte working hard drive. So it's one of those things. you have to apply a bit of good faith, because this also keeps them honest. This keeps them honest. It's like, hey, why we have so many RMAs? There is a good chance you have design failure. So if nobody did that, everybody just complained about it in Amazon, they're like, hey, Amazon is like, bro, you are outside of our coverage window and you complain, but people will buy it because, again, let's say reviewers said amazing things, people will keep buying that. So it's one of those things. It's really good for you also to learn RMAs and all that. It keeps company honest and obvious. They cannot just lol things away. Then company needs to, like, somebody needs to have a hand, go into that product manager's ass and pull out the SKUs. Like, why the heck we have so many SKUs? Like, this is tangibly bad for companies also. Everybody, for the inventory guy, from the guys who have to maintain these things in, like, Amazon, on Flipkarts or whatever have you, they're also, I said, like, dude, this Wi-Fi board is like not this in what? So it's like really, really bad. That product SKU has to be reduced. Then companies have to simplify the warranty. They have to simplify it. It's like, you have issues, this is how you do it. And pissing off the customers should not be a good strategy. And again, many companies that are wise enough, they know this, but sometimes they kind of forget. There needs to be retaught this. Like, this guy was a CEO at some point, like a solid guy, solid rich guy. Now it's not a solid rich guy. So it's one of those things that you have to understand. Piss off the customer. Unless you are Apple, you cannot get away with it. Apple is the one company that can just like, hey, our motherboard, yeah, we just gonna put a red sticker there that changes red with atmospheric moisture, not touching liquid, just atmospheric moisture, and we're gonna poof it out of existence. So it's one of those things. So this was my presentation on basically brand loyalty and brand value and all that jazz. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst a friend. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.